Bien, pues vamos con el siguiente de los casos. ¿Cuál es el que toca? El suceso de Abbye Grange. Venga, pues vamos al lío. Vamos a esperar que cargue. Ahí está ya el lío.
The game's afoot, not a word. Into your clothes and come. I'll wait for you in the sitting room. I've just received a note from Inspector Lestrade, a letter from the suburbs. He is in need of my presence. Whenever he has asked for my assistance, it has always turned out to be entirely justified. I fancy that every one of his cases has found its way into your collection.
Yes, they all seem worthy of...
However, I regret your fatal habit of looking at everything from the point of view of a story instead of a scientific exercise.
Oh, Holmes, you...
I beg your pardon, I digress. It would be much better to examine this letter than to try to convince you.
Vale, antes que nada, vamos a quitar primero la visión. Vamos a quitar la cartita aquí del... Ah, vale, está quitada, perfecto. Creía que era del caso anterior. Vale, pues vamos a mirar la mesa, vamos a mirar la carta que nos han mandado. Veamos en la
I can tell
dirección.
from Lestrade's handwriting that he was in a hurry when he wrote this letter.
El sello.
A wax seal with the monogram E.B.
La giramos y el otro sello.
The Brackenstall family coat of arms.
Mi querido señor Holmes, me gustaría mucho poder contar cuanto antes con su ayuda en lo que promete ser un caso de lo más extraordinario. Parece que entra de lleno en su especialidad. Aparte de dejar libre a la señora, procuraré que todo se mantenga exactamente como lo encontré, pero le ruego que no pierda un instante porque es difícil dejar aquí a Sir Eustace.
So, what is it, Holmes?
Promising, as always, it appears to be a case of murder.
So you believe that Sir Eustace is dead?
I should say so. Lestrade wouldn't have sent for me for less. His writing shows considerable agitation, and he is not an emotional man. These people belong to high society. The quality of the writing paper, the EB monogram, their coat of arms. The crime was committed before midnight.
Holmes, how can you possibly tell?
Well, it is all thanks to Lestrade. He wrote his letter at 3:30 in the morning. Imagine the chain of events before that. The local police had to be called in. Scotland Yard was notified. Lestrade himself had to make haste there, and finally compose the letter he sent to me. All of that makes for a fair night's work.
It makes sense. Lestrade also speaks of the woman he released.
That seems to indicate that she had been held somewhere during the crime. Much time has been wasted. Let us find a cab and go to Abbye Grange immediately. I live in hope of an interesting morning.
Bien, pues no nos da alternativa, vamos a ir a Abbye Grange. Vale, pues ya hemos llegado.
Ah, Mr. Holmes and Dr. Watson, here you are. I'm very glad that you have come, but perhaps I should not have troubled you after all.
And why is that?
Lady Brackenstall has come to her senses, and she has given so clear an account of the affair that there is not much left for us to do. You remember that Lewisham gang of burglars?
What, the three Randalls?
Exactly. The father and two sons. It's their work. They stole a silver service, which is of great value.
Sir Eustace Brackenstall is dead, then?
Yes. His head was knocked in with his own poker.
A violent act of aggression.
Yes, the poor lady. She has had a most dreadful experience. She was assaulted and tied to a chair. But I think that you would best see her and hear her account of the facts. She's in the morning room with her maid to raise a right.
Where is the body of the deceased?
In the dining room. We haven't touched anything.
All right. I'm going to examine it.
Very good, Watson.
Vale, dice que tenemos que examinar la habitación donde está Lady Breakstall, o como se llama.
Ladies, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Sherlock Holmes. I'm assisting Inspector Lestrade in this investigation.
Mr. Holmes, I am the wife of Sir Eustace Brackenstall. We were married only a year ago.
I am sorry for your loss. Please accept my deepest condolences.
I suppose that it is no use my attempting to conceal that our marriage has not been a happy one. I fear that all would tell you that, even if I were to attempt to deny it.
Can you describe to me the events of yesterday evening?
Is it really necessary? I have already told Inspector Lestrade all that happened.
Yes, madam, it is.
I will tell you then. Sir Eustace retired about 10:30. I sat in this room until after 11, absorbed in a book. Before I went upstairs, I entered the dining room to fetch a candle and... oh God.
Please, go on.
As I approached the French window, I found myself face to face with an elderly, broad-shouldered man who had just stepped into the room. Close behind the first man, I saw two others. One of them struck me a savage blow with his fist and felled me unconscious to the ground.
And then?
When I came to myself, I found that they had secured me tightly to a dining room chair. It was at that instant my unfortunate husband entered the room.
He fought with the intruders?
Yes, I think he had heard them, for he was holding his stick. But they were three, and he eventually succumbed. One of them, the elder one, struck him a terrible blow with the poker. I fainted once more. When I opened my eyes, they had withdrawn. Then my brave Teresa came to my assistance.
Did these three villains steal anything?
Yes, I found that they had taken the silver from the sideboard, but you can see for yourself in the dining room.
Vale, la vamos a examinar. Cardenales recientes. Mejillas pálidas. ¿De cuándo esto es la mejilla? Mejilla sería esto. Bueno. Está más feo. Vestido elegante. Alianza. Cardenales viejos.
You mentioned that your marriage was not a happy one. Was there anything specific that was troubling you?
He was not a nice man when he was drunk, and he suffered from dark moods, but nothing else.
Cardenales viejos.
The bruises on your hands are at least 1 week old. Your husband caused those bruises?
Oh, do you? Yes, he did. He was very angry at the time. Out of control. Again. Sir Eustace was a drunkard. To be tied to such a man for life is worse than death.
Your ladyship?
Vale, pues por lo pronto ya no tenemos nada más de Lady Brackenstall. Vamos a hablar con Teresa.
Teresa, I would like to hear your testimony.
Certainly, sir. As I sat by my bedroom window, I saw 3 men in the moonlight down by the lodge gate. But I thought nothing of it at the time. Oh, if I'd known.
And then?
I went to bed, and it was more than an hour after that I heard my mistress scream. And down I ran, to find her tied to the chair and him on the floor with his head smashed. That's all I know.
Vamos a examinarla. Bien, tenemos que seguir examinando la habitación. Nos vamos a encontrar con esto. Floreciente negocio familiar, la banda de los Randall está de vuelta. Hace menos de 15 días, esta infame familia de ladrones, conocido como los Randall, hizo su reaparición por medio de una brutal pero exitosa intrusión en una de las casas más adineradas de Sydenham. La policía ya está tras su pista, aunque los detalles del crimen continúan siendo confidenciales, incluso el nombre de la víctima. Un testigo pudo proporcionar una descripción precisa de los tres hombres, lo que sin duda permitirá a la policía completar su perfil de esta familia de delincuentes. Nos tomamos la libertad de recordarle a nuestros estimados lectores que esta banda es sumamente peligrosa y a continuación reproducimos su descripción más exacta hasta la fecha. La banda lleva un tiempo considerable en activo y se trata de una familia que consta de 3 miembros, un padre y 2 hijos. El padre, Jack Randall, es un hombre de unos 40 años, ya canoso y de estatura y constitución media. Él es el cerebro tras el golpe y mantiene el control de sus 2 hijos, que son de una edad similar, aunque muy distintos de aspecto. El hijo mayor, William Randall, es alto, de anchos hombros, con una cabeza desproporcionadamente pequeña. Y el menor, Melvin Randall, tiene una constitución algo más débil y es delgado como un rastrillo. Se busca a la banda no únicamente por su frecuente robo con escala, sino también por su carrera en la piratería, de una brutalidad excepcional, que desarrollaron antes de su ingreso a Inglaterra. Manténgase alerta y que sus objetos de valor permanezcan a salvo.
The description of the Randall gang provided by Lady Brackenstall is identical to the one in the Times article.
Oye, mira tú qué casualidad, ¿no? Que la descripción que ha dado
A trapper's hut.
es exactamente igual que la que había en un periódico.
This photograph of Lady Brackenstall and her maid Teresa was taken at a port, but which one? This photograph of Lady Brackenstall.
Vale, esto ya está. ¿Se puede girar? Rock of Gibraltar, Adelaide, 1893.
So the lady and her maid.
Me la llevo. Es lo que hay. Nada más de aquí. Tenemos que mirar con la letra T. Vamos a ver. Hay unos arañazos.
These scratches are most definitely made by.
Movemos el cuadro y nos encontramos con una
This
caja
is
fuerte.
Sir Eustace's safe. There may be something important inside. I must ask Lady Brackenstall to open it.
Vale, pues le vamos a pedir a Lady Brackenstall que abra la caja fuerte.
Lady Brackenstall, could you open this wall safe?
No, it is my husband's safe. I do not know the combination.
We have to open it. Your ladyship?
Bien, pues tenemos que abrir la caja fuerte.
Let us try to open this safe. This safe can be cracked. I only have to pay attention. The dial will vibrate when it is set to the correct number.
Vale, entonces tenemos que ir girando y cuando lleguemos al número correcto... Ahí está. ¿Veis que ha temblado? Pues lo vamos buscando ahora. Ahí, que ve que tintinea. Pues ese sería el número. Y ahora hacemos lo mismo hacia el otro lado. Tintinea. Pues lo hemos abierto. Otro informe. Su actual estado físico y mental es muy preocupante. Sí, Eustace, que me lo salta por toda la cara. Su actual estado físico y mental es muy preocupante. Muestra graves signos de descompensación hepática. La última vez que lo visité, sus ojos estaban inyectados en sangre y su piel tenía un color amarillento. El particular olor que despide su aliento es muy común en las personas que sufren del hígado. Además sufre de los abscesos de los pulmones que ya hemos discutido. Los calambres en las piernas los causa una alteración del sistema nervioso, que a su vez está causada por el exceso de alcohol. Lo mismo ocurre con los temblores. Su hígado estaba muy rígido la última vez que lo examiné. signos de que su cirrosis empeora. También muestra síntomas de ascitis, fluido en la cavidad peritoneal, al juzgar por su vientre hinchado. El dolor bajo su costado izquierdo indica una dolencia pancreática que puede derivar en una mortal pancreatitis fulminante. Su estado puede suponer peligro para otras personas. El consumo excesivo de alcohol rebaja su autocontrol y aumenta su agresividad. Estoy a disposición para asistirle con este problema. Existen distintos tratamientos que podemos aplicar.
It is common practice to keep one's valuables. Antique coins, possibly of value, but they're scattered without care.
Vale, pues ya hemos registrado todo. Vamos a hablar otra vez con la lady.
Oh, what a
Nada.
horrible thing to have.
Con Teresita.
Sir Eustace's doctor speaks of his violent behaviour.
Yes, Sir Eustace was an extremely violent man. A detestable human being, to be more precise. It is true that he once threw a decanter at me, and all because I dared to stand up to him in defence of my mistress. Sly devil. God forgive me that I should speak of him so now that he's dead, but a devil he was, if ever one walked the earth. We met him only 18 months ago. She'd only just arrived in London. Yes, it was her first voyage. She'd never been from home before. Wonder with his title and his money and his false London ways. If she made a mistake, she has paid for it, if ever a woman did. She doesn't have any friends here, so it was especially hard for her.
Vale, tenemos pistas. Pero antes que nada voy a ir a... Bueno, podemos hablar con Lestrade.
What do you know about Sir Eustace, Inspector? What was his reputation?
A charming man when sober, but an absolute demon when he was drunk. In such moments he was apparently capable of anything. Why, once he splashed fuel on Lady Brackenstall's dog and set it alight. Another day he threw a decanter of wine at Miss Wright's head.
The alcohol seemed to madden him.
To the point that we were forced to intervene several times to avoid a scandal.
Vale, seguimos. Tenemos que explorar el cuerpo.
You should examine the body of Sir Eustace Brackenstall.
Vale, pero primero voy a examinar la habitación, todo lo que pueda.
A trapper's hut.
Los cuadros no son muy relevantes,
The
pero bueno,
hunting scene.
ya que nos dejan verlo.
A
Los
hunter's
miramos.
cabin. An empty silverware box. It appears that the intruders have stolen the contents. This candlestick is valuable. It is interesting that it was not also stolen. A bottle of wine is missing here. These wine bottles are expensive and mostly from France. The criminals did not thoroughly ransack the house. They only took a little silverware. The hunting scene. A deer hunt. A fur trader's cabin. So, Watson, what have you learned from examining Sir Eustace's body?
Well, I can confirm that the death was instant. Sir Eustace was facing his attacker when he received the blow to his head. There are no other apparent injuries.
Quite a large stick, a formidable weapon. Barefoot, he had therefore been in bed and did not have time to fully dress. That must be the murder weapon. The head was cracked with the force of the blow. It is covered in blood. Sir Eustace might have struck his head upon it while falling from the blow. That is one possible explanation.
pulsamos la T. Es que... Ah, vale, sí, aquí arriba, revisa. Y miramos
It
esto, el ojo de
appears that the
cuerda.
bell rope was cut by someone taller than me.
Vale,
A
miramos el
decanter
decantador.
standing next to the open bottle, an inseparable pair indeed.
Botella.
Chateau Calon Ségur, French wine, Grand Cru. There is beeswing at the bottom, as if the wine had not been decanted before being poured. This glass has some wine traces, but no visible beeswing. This glass has some wine traces, but no visible beeswing. It is rather strange that only one of these glasses has dregs of beeswing inside it, while the other two are clear.
Vale, tenemos que hablar con la viudita y con su ama de llaves.
There are 3 glasses on the dining room table. I was wondering if...
Oh, I forgot. When I came to myself the first time, each of them had a glass in his hand. They might have been a father and his 2 sons. They talked together in whispers, and then they left.
Your ladyship?
Es que estaba pensando, pero no.
Please leave my Mary alone.
Vale, hablamos con
Have you found
Lestrade.
any interesting
Nada.
clues yet, Mr. Holmes?
Y tendríamos que examinar la escena del crimen del comedor. Pues ya la hemos examinado. ¿Qué me he saltado? Vale, pues por aquí nada. Y eso ya está todo explorado, eso está todo explorado.
A fur trader's cabin.
The death was instant.
A hunter scene.
Pues que yo sepa, eso está todo. Pero esto lo hemos hablado, la copa también le he preguntado. Pues... ¿Qué me falta? ¿Qué me he saltado? Ay, espérate, aquí no hay nada, ¿no? ¿Qué me he saltado yo por aquí?
Lord Ramsay Bracken. Lord Brigham Brackenstall. Sir Warthen Brackenstall. Lord George Brackenstall. Baron... The Brackenstall family seems rather austere.
¿Se me ha escapado algo del cuerpo? No, no. El atizador también lo miré, ¿no? ¿Qué es lo que se me ha escapado, tío? Ah, la puerta esta.
This door leads to the upstairs bedrooms. Apparently the criminals did not venture there.
La plata está examinada. Las botellas. Ah, la silla es lo que me faltaba esto.
Sailor's knots. That's interesting. This rope was handled by the murderers. We need a scent hound to follow their trail. I will take it with me. This is the chair that Lady Brackenstall was tied to.
Vale, ahora sí tenemos que ir atando cabos. Y lo vamos a hacer mientras que vamos a Baker Street, ¿vale? Para examinar los nudos del... Bien, vamos a ir atando cabos. Tenemos... ¡Guau! Viaje. A ver, a ver, a ver, a ver. Cadáver, comportamiento violento, atizador doblado. La muerte de Sirius Tace pudo deberse a un golpe con el atizador. Genio. ¿Qué más? Dos copas, copa con pozos. Hubo 3 personas bebiendo de 3 copas. Una de las 3 ha de preferir el vino con pozos. Hubo 2 personas bebiendo de 3 copas. La copa de sobra contenía los pozos de las otras 2. Cadáver, comportamiento violento no. Rejilla de la chimenea. La muerte de Sirius puede deberse a un golpe accidental con la... No. La muerte de Sirius pudo deberse a un golpe con el atizador. Eso es más plausible. ¿Qué me queda? De Australia... Su vida personal. Lady Brackenstall se casó Sirius poco después de llegar a Inglaterra y permaneció a causa de durante... con el país. ¿Conoce a alguien de Rock o Gibraltar? Pues puede ser. Del barco. Comportamiento violento, los Randall son conocidos, no. Criminales identificados, no. Relato del inspector, sí. Era violento con su mujer. Y me queda, los Randall son conocidos como criminales identificados. Fingido. Criminales y cordón anudado no casan, así que vamos a volver al juego. Llegamos aquí a Baker Street. Ahí estamos. Y vamos a la mesa de laboratorio.
Let us see how the rope was cut. The fibers at the end of the rope are smoothly cut. Let us try to find out what tool was used to cut the rope. The fibers from this cut appear to be different. The fibers from this cut appear to be different.
Y por último, cuchillito.
If I cut the rope with a knife, it matches the original.
Vale, tenemos más pistas. Cuchillo afilado, cordón anudado. El cordón fue cortado con un cuchillo marinero y atado con nudos marineros. Eso puede indicar que el intruso tiene historial como marinero. Creo que iba a decir cuchillo marinero, nudo marinero y el sospechoso es cura. Vale. ¿Qué tenemos por aquí? ¿Nada? Recoge a Toby en Baker Street para que siga el rastro. Pues vamos, Toby. Vamos a dar una vueltecita, anda.
Come on, Toby. We need the best nose in the British Empire on this case.
Vale, volvemos a Abbye Grange. Y ahora nos vamos a convertir en Toby.
Search, Toby.
Y tú, nada más que le da una orden. Search, Toby. Y ya el perro sabe lo que tiene que hacer. Vamos, perrito. Se nota que el perro es paticorto, no veas si va lento. Vamos a seguir el tufo.
The intruders entered the shed for some reason when they were making off with the silverware.
Y por aquí hay otro loco.
The scent leads to the well. I should check it.
Por aquí hay otro rastro.
The intruder's trail is lost behind this wall. The criminals left the house through the French window. They walked to the shed, then across to the well, before fleeing by climbing over the wall. I wonder why they chose such a winding route.
Bien, Toby, bien.
There's something glittering at the bottom there, but how can I reach it?
Quitamos el cubo. Y aquí necesitamos un
I need a hook.
hook. Así que vamos a ir a por un hook.
This hook might be useful.
Ya tenemos el hook cogido. Ya de camino.
Bags of seed. Some empty bags were recently moved. Small gardening tools. Nothing of great interest. This old suitcase sounds hollow. It must be empty.
Vale, vamos a colocar el hook.
Silverware. This is hardly a coincidence. The Brackenstall coat of arms. It appears that we have found the stolen silverware.
Bien, pues... Antes que nada... El robo se ha confirmado con motivo del crimen. Los criminales podrían volver a por la plata que arrojaron al pozo. El robo pudo haberse fingido para explicar la muerte de Sir Eustace. Se suponía que la plata no sería hallada. Vale, tenemos ya violencia doméstica. O sea, el asesino fue asesinado por una persona que estaba de visita esa noche y fue él quien ató a Lady Brackenstall. Es alto y fuerte. Y buscar un marinero. La persona que estaba de visita esa noche era probablemente un marinero. Pues vamos viento en popa, nunca mejor dicho. Buscar posibles marineros sospechosos y tengo que hablar con la esta y llevar esto a los archivos, ¿vale? Entonces vamos a entrar.
Inspector, I have recovered the stolen silverware.
You are a wizard, Mr. Holmes. And where is it?
In the garden well.
Excuse me?
Unique, isn't it?
Rather absurd. What is the point of stealing silverware and then throwing it down into a well?
Perhaps it was used as a temporary hiding place, or simply the thieves wanted to get rid of it. It is up to us to solve this mystery. We found your silverware, Lady Brackenstall. It had not been taken very far.
Is that true? I am very thankful to you, Mr. Holmes.
Your ladyship? We found your mistress's silverware.
Oh, that's good news. You really are as clever as they say.
Indeed.
Cuando te metas en la cárcel no me digas eso. Bueno, va.
Holmes, don't look at me like that.
Baker Street. Vamos a buscar en los archivos. ¿Dónde está? Aquí. 1893, Rock of Gibraltar. 1893. Llegada del Rock of Gibraltar. El Rock of Gibraltar es un carguero de la línea Adelaida Southampton, Londres. Edificio Cunard James Street, Londres. Ha vuelto de su viaje de 6 meses con escala en la India, Nueva Zelanda y Australia. El buque transportaba a Inglaterra a la señorita Mary Fraser, heredera de la familia Fraser, propietaria de las tierras y minas de estaño en Australia. Esta joven dama de gran belleza, según nos consta, está comprometida con Sir Eustace Brackenstall, uno de los hombres más adinerados de Kent.
Here it is. The shipping company The Adelaide-Southampton-London line, and its address. Interesting. It must be the place where they keep the records, including the one for the crew of the Rock of Gibraltar.
I think that if you pretend you're from Scotland Yard, they'll give it to you without any problems.
But I have another solution. I'll call in the specialist.
Wiggin.
Wiggins, could you come upstairs, please?
At your service, Mr. Holmes.
I need a register, my young friend. If you could borrow it, there will be half a guinea for every one of you. I need the crew list of the Rock of Gibraltar in 1893, and their current employment.
I'm straight on it, Mr. Holmes.
Do you really think they'll find it, Holmes?
My secret police is better than the Yard in many ways.
Here it is, Mr. Holmes. But we can't take it back. It's too risky.
Put it on the table. I'll take care of it. Good work, young Wiggins.
Vale, pues ahí tenemos el informe.
This list shows the senior officers of the Rock of Gibraltar, on which Lady Brackenstall and her maid made their voyage. Lady Brackenstall does not know anyone in England. This must mean that someone on this list is our mysterious visitor. And these are the lists of the senior officers of the Adelaide-Southampton-London line ships. Let us find out who was in London upon November the 7th.
Vale, tenemos si Charles W. Chill. Pues aquí no está. Archibald tampoco. James Talcott tampoco. Bueno, va a ser más fácil. Charles W. Bueno, aquí está. Charles W.
This officer was on a ship that sailed half a month ago. He wasn't in London at the time of the crime.
Jack Crocker.
Mr. Jack Crocker was in London upon the date of the crime, and he is due to depart in 2 days. This list shows the senior officers of the Rock of Gibraltar, on which Lady Brackenstall and her maid made their voyage. Lady Brackenstall does not know.
Vale, Henry Southward.
This officer is still at sea, therefore he cannot be involved.
N.J. Boots.
This officer is still at sea, therefore he cannot be involved.
Thomas Walker. Thomas Walker.
This officer is still at sea, therefore he cannot be involved.
Ever Withington, ¿no?
This officer is still at sea, therefore he cannot be involved.
Que me falta Sir William Park H.
This officer was on a ship that sailed half a month ago. He wasn't in London at the time of the crime. Captain Jack Crocker is our mysterious visitor. He was the only one around at the time of the murder.
Tenemos que el Croque es el que...
This Crocker. Do you think...
It would be interesting to meet him. Our young friend should be able to find him. Wiggins, could you find a way to bring this Captain Crocker here to us?
Here? Holmes, that could be dangerous.
No problem, Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Holmes, I was informed that you were looking for me, and I'd like to know why.
Yes, it is important that we talk. You will soon understand why. You are acquainted with Lady Mary Brackenstall, are you not?
Yes, I think I do remember her, from when I was first officer, but I still don't see...
It seems your relationship went beyond that of mere passenger and first officer.
How dare you?
Indeed, how reckless a feeling is love, particularly if one is prepared to commit a murder in its name.
Explain yourself this instant.
You are aware that the murder made the headlines of the morning press. You read the newspaper report, but to your dismay, found it much fabricated. Once you learned that I wanted to see you, you came straight away. You needed to know what I had found.
You... and what do you know?
That evening, you were with Lady Brackenstall, despite the danger.
I'm not afraid, Mr. Holmes. Besides, all of this is just guesswork.
You would be right if there was no evidence.
What then?
Lo examinamos. Vamos. Mirada limpia. Honesto, dice. Constitución fuerte. Tinta de periódico. Botas limpias. Pues me falta una cosa por ahí. Cuchillo de marinero es lo que me faltaba.
Lady Brackenstall was tied to a chair on the night of the murder. And it was you who tied her up.
You call that evidence?
Yes, as she was tied with a sailor's knot. Your handiwork.
So, it's a sailor who's done it. That proves nothing, Mr. Holmes. I'm not the only sailor in London right now. Your theory is flawed anyway. On the night of the murder, I was aboard the Sharp. I was supervising the repair of a porthole.
At night?
It was an emergency. There was a leak. You can ask the ship's carpenter. He can confirm.
I'm sure that he can.
Perfect. In that case, we have nothing more to talk about. Good evening, gentlemen.
Holmes, what should we do now? Would you like to check his alibi?
No. There is no doubt that these men will testify in his favor, and there will be no way to check.
So, what then?
So, we must work with what we have. We have all the puzzle pieces.
Now I understand why you dissected the bell rope.
Vale, pues yo creo que vamos a ir directamente con esto. Y con esto debería darme como... Ahí está, como el asesino es el capitán Jack Crocker. Lo que no sé yo si tengo todas las pruebas, creo que sí, así que vamos a culparlo ya. Es un asesino y lo llevará junto a su cómplice Lady Brackenstall ante la justicia. Si no me he equivocado, este debería ser el correcto.
Wiggins, could you ask Mr. Crocker to come here again, please?
Right away.
Why did you make me come here again, Mr. Holmes?
It is over. I know that it was you who killed Sir Eustace Brackenstall.
What?
I know, because of the height at which the rope was cut. The knife used was a sea knife. The knots were sailor's knots, and not least the sheer force that was put behind the killing blow. And because you are the only one who knows Lady Mary Brackenstall in London. And because you love her.
It's true.
It is time for you to tell us the whole truth.
I admit that I loved Mary madly from the first day that I met her. But I never did come to visit her, for I believed that she was in a happy household. When I talked to her maid, who told me everything, I was insane with rage. I was due to set sail for 6 months away. I wanted only to see her again. But it turned into a damnable nightmare when he barged in. He dared raise his hand to her. He was not even worthy of licking her boots. Oh, I regret nothing. I admit I killed the monster out of love for her. She will forgive me if she is able.
Lady Brackenstall already forgave you. She said nothing.
Mary.
But that makes her an accomplice as well as her maid. It places her in danger yet again.
Mr. Holmes.
You would not have managed to protect her.
Till I die, do you hear me? Here is a letter that sets everything clear, and it is the one that should be disclosed to the police. I am the only culprit. Mary had nothing to do with it. Now it is time to end this.
Hombre.
You should have let me die. How can I live if Mary suffers?
I am sorry, Captain Crocker, but there has been quite enough death in this case. Inspector, I give you Sir Eustace's killer. He tried his best to perform his own justice.
Well, I'm not surprised. Yes, it was me. I confess.
Here is a piece of evidence that can be used in court.
Perfect. A case that went smoothly for once.
Vale, y deberían estar todas las pistas y debería estar en verde lo del asesino es el capitán. Perfecto, pues está correcto. Bien, vamos a repetir el final, vamos a absorberlo a ver qué tal sería. Si lo absorbemos. Y luego iremos probando otros finales, pero no sé yo si esto tiene muchos finales. Como no culpemos a Toby. Absolver al capitán, a ver cómo es el final.
Wiggins, could you ask Mr. Crocker to come here again, please?
Right away.
Why did you make me come here again, Mr. Holmes?
It is over. I know that it was you who killed Sir Eustace Brackenstall.
What?
I know, because of the height at which the rope was cut. The knife used was a sea knife. The knots were sailor's knots, and not least the sheer force that was put behind the killing blow. And because you are the only one who knows Lady Mary Brackenstall in London. And because you love her.
It's true.
It is time for you to tell us the whole truth.
I admit that I loved Mary madly from the first day that I met her. But I never did come to visit her, for I believed that she was in a happy household. When I talked to her maid, who told me everything, I was insane with rage. I was due to set sail for 6 months away. I wanted only to see her again. But it turned into a damnable nightmare when he barged in. He dared raise his hand to her. He was not even worthy of licking her boots. Oh, I regret nothing. I admit I killed the monster out of love for her. She will forgive me if she is able.
Lady Brackenstall already forgave you. She said nothing.
Mary.
But that makes her an accomplice as well as her maid. It places her in danger yet again.
Mr. Holmes.
You would not have managed to protect her.
Till I die, do you hear me? Here is a letter that sets everything clear, and it is the one that should be disclosed to the police. I am the only culprit. Mary had nothing to do with it. Now it is time to end this.
Es el mismo por ahora, ¿no? Si cambia algo ahora. Si no, es exactamente igual.
Please forgive me, Captain Crocker. I wished only to test your sincerity, and your words and deeds have far exceeded my expectations. See here, Captain Crocker, we'll do this in due form of law. You are the prisoner. Watson, you are a British jury. Captain Crocker, the evidence shows that you acted without premeditation and used reasonable force to protect an innocent victim from her husband's brutality. Your devotion pushed you to attempt to kill yourself in order to protect the one you love. Now, what say you, gentlemen of the jury?
Not guilty, my lord.
Vox populi, vox dei. You are acquitted, Captain Crocker. So long as the law does not find some other victim, you are safe from me.
Mr. Holmes.
It is a great responsibility that I take upon myself, but I will give Lestrade an excellent lead, and if he can't avail himself of it, I can do no more. Come back to your lady in a year, and may her future and yours justify us in the judgment which we have pronounced this night. Inspector, I'm afraid that the murderers have escaped us.
What? Do you mean to tell me that you failed? Never thought I'd live to see the day.
I mentioned the murderers, not the case. It is obvious that the crime was committed by 3 criminals who cannot be the Randalls.
You really think so?
You only need to find a gang of 3 thugs wandering around. I can trust you to do that.
If they exist, I'll catch them.
You'll find someone, I have no doubt of it. Goodbye, Inspector.
Vale. Esta también no la dan por buena. Vamos a repetir y tengo curiosidad porque no sé a quién puedo culpar que no sea el Capitán Jack. Ah, bueno, puedo culpar a los Randall, ¿no? Hubo 3 personas de 3 copas, una de las 3 con pozos, por ejemplo. En vez de robo fingido, el robo se ha confirmado por motivos criminales, podían devolver la plata robo nervoso para recogerla. Los Randall. Apunta con los Randall. No conocía a nadie. ¿Qué es lo que no me cuadra? Esto, la banda de los Randall, accidente mortal. Ahora debería dármela por... Los Randall son los culpables, vale, pues esta sería el otro final. Pero claro, los Randall no están. Porque... Dame un segundito. Porque no hay otra manera de culpar a otros, ¿no? O sea que este es el último final que hay. Pues aquí se va a quedar. La gloria para el Lestrade.
Well, Inspector, this case proved to be a simple one after all.
You think it's the Randall gang, then?
Yes.
I'll put my men on it straight away.
I'll leave that to you, Inspector. After all, you have handled this matter quite brilliantly.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Holmes. I do appreciate it.
Bueno, lo único que sí se podría hacer es dejar morir al... O sea, no quitarle la pistola al capitán y que muera, pero al fin y al cabo es lo mismo, ¿no? Bueno, venga, pues entonces vamos a dejarlo aquí, aceptar la decisión. Supongo que esto tendrá muy poquitas. Un 2% nada más. Y nada, como siempre, vamos a dejar ya el vídeo aquí. Así que ya sabéis, si os ha ayudado el vídeo, os ha gustado, suscribiros al canal, darle a like, por favor, que me haríais un gran favor para poder seguir subiendo vídeos de guías y esas cosas que a mí me gustan subir. Y nada, poco más que decir, vamos a dejar el vídeo aquí. Y en el siguiente vídeo pues continuaremos con creo que es el penúltimo de los casos de este Sherlock Holmes.